Hello everybody and welcome to PotentialU Education. I'm Alex, your computer science tutor, and today we're going to be going through OCR Computer Science Paper 1 GCSE May 2023. So make sure you're following along and let's get right into it. So first things first, pop your name down and then we'll move on to question 1. So tick one box to identify the statement about binary that is true. Binary digits can only be values 0, 1 and 2. This is false. And we can tell this through the fact that even down here, which is 8-bit binary, there's only zeros and ones. So this is a very easy one to start off with. The leftmost bit of a binary integer has the smallest value. This one is also false. And the way that we know this is by finding the values of binary integers. So let's say 0, 1, 1, 0 would give us 6 in denary, and we can see that 8 here is larger than 4, 2 and 1, so therefore this one is incorrect also. And finally, binary is used because computers are made up of switches that can be on or off. This is true, so here is our answer. And let's just go for the next one. The smallest whole number that can be stored in 8 bits is the number 1. This one here is also false, as if you wanted to, you could store all zeros, giving you the denary value of 0. Okay, let's move on to our next question. So here we have complete the table by writing the missing denary, 8-bit binary or hexadecimal values. So denary is just regular numbers that we know, 8-bit binary is what computers use, and hexadecimal is just an easier way for humans to read binary. So what we should do is we should pop down here 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, and finally 128. And that will give us our values. So got 1 in the 1 column, 1 in the 2, and 1 in the 4. So 1 plus 2 plus 4 gives us the value of 7. Let's move on to the next one. So again, we've got the column up here, and we could pop it in here, makes it a bit easier to see. 64, 32, 16, and 1. So how many times does 128 go into 49? 0. Same as 64. Goes in once here. So then we do 49, subtract 32, which gives us 17. And then 16 goes into 17 once as well. And then 0, 0, 0, 1. So that gives us 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1. And the way that we could check this is correct is by splitting this in 2 and treating these as 1, 2, 4, and 8. This is how we figure out hexadecimal. So 2 and 1 is 3, which we can see here. And all that we're left with is a 1, which is there. So there we go. We know that this is our answer. Okay, let's go on to the next one. So we could do the same again. 1, 2, 8, 64, 32, 16, 8, 4, 2, and 1. So we could do 64 plus 32 plus 4 plus 2, and that will leave us with 102. And finally, we should split this in half. 1, 2, 4, and 8. 1, 2, 4, and 8. Now here we have 4. And the most important thing you can remember is that the value 15, so 8 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1, which is 15, is equal to F in hexadecimal, and A is equal to 10. So it only goes up to F, which is 15. So if you just remember that, then you can work your way backwards to A, and then anything below A, which is 10, is just going to remain as a regular number. So here our answer will be F4. And that's first page done. So that's 5 marks already. And let's move on to the next one. Tick one box to identify the largest file size. So here you're going to have to do a few conversions to figure out what the different sizes are. So 0.1 gigabytes, for instance, is equal to 100 megabytes. 2 million bytes is equal to 2 megabytes. And 2,300 kilobytes is equal to 2.3 megabytes, which means that our largest value is 200 megabytes here. And based on our calculations earlier, we can see that 4,500,000 bytes is going to be equal to 4.5 megabytes. And therefore, these first two, I clicked two boxes to identify two file sizes that are equal. It's going to be the first one and the third one. Now, complete binary addition by adding these two binary numbers. So 0 plus 1 is equal to 1, 1, 1, 1, and 1 plus 1 is equal to 0, but we carry the 1. So now it's 1 plus 1 down here, the carry bit, and that gives us 0, and then again, and then again. So our answer here is 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1. Identify the binary shift that's been applied to the binary number 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0 to get the result of 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So what would we have to do here? We can see here that we've got 1, 2, 3 places before this becomes the first value. And therefore, we've got a shift of 3. So a shift of 3. And we know that this is going to be a left shift, as this is being pulled forwards. And therefore, we need to add on 3 more zeros to the back. So a left shift. And we can take a look at that. Yes, a left shift of 3 places. There you go. Now that is all of question 1. Question 2. A student is performing a range of actions on the internet using their computer. A range of protocols are used for the transmission of data by the student's computer and the web servers they're accessing. So AI is complete the table by identifying the most appropriate protocol for each of the tasks the student is performing. So, requesting to view a news web page from a web server. Now, most web protocols, and this one included, are going to be put down under Hypertext Transfer Protocol. You can either write out the whole name, or more simply, you can just write HTTP, which stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. And that's where servers will give you the information and it loads up web pages specifically. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So entering a username and a password to access their bank account. Now this is also going to be Hypertext Transfer Protocol. However, this time it's going to be secure. So HTTPS. This is what you'll most likely see on most websites nowadays. HTTPS. So just remember that the S is for secure, and we need this because it's username and password to a bank account, which you don't want to just give out to anybody. Finally, downloading a text document from a web server. So again, we're just accessing a web server here. So we could just pop down HTTP. And finally, checking for new emails in their inbox. Now, you've got two different options here as to what you want to put down. You can put down the post office protocol, so that's POP, or you can put down IMAP, with IMAP standing for Internet Message Access Protocol. So either POP or IMAP. Don't bother with both, you won't get any more marks, just go for whichever you remember. So, some protocols have layers. Why do they have layers? Well, layers are very useful for developers. One developer is not going to know everything about all aspects of computer science. So if you can have a developer that specializes in one area of layers, then you can create more optimized solutions. So let's put that down as our first reason. It allows developers to focus on only one layer, letting them specialize. So developers can specialize. And another reason why protocols have layers is so that they can be developed independently. If all of the layers rely on each other, then you can't really develop anything until one is done. So it allows for independent development of each layer. Okay, there you go. That would be 2 marks. Other reasons include one layer can be changed without affecting the others. That's again just independence. Each layer is not reliant on the others, allows manufacturers to develop hardware to fit into one particular layer, all sorts of different reasons, but these two will be good enough for you to get both your marks. Okay, B, the student's computer is part of their home local area network, LAN. The LAN currently only has wired connections. Give one characteristic of a LAN is they're set up over a small geographical area. Give another characteristic of a LAN. So LANs are local area networks, sort of thing that you're going to have in your house. You might even have it in a school. And yeah, let's come up with one characteristic. So it uses dedicated hardware, and there's no need for external or third-party hardware / infrastructure. You're not going to have Dell come in to fit a server in your house. And computers use MAC addresses to communicate within the LAN. So let's go for an easy one. It uses its own internal hardware. Okay, great. So next page. Describe the benefits of the student changing their home LAN to include wireless connections. So wireless connections allow for more devices to connect. So more. It also allows for easier connections. You don't have to hand out cables. And it's cheaper to purchase and install, as you don't have to pay for a load of cables. Uh, Other benefits are mobility. You can now move around. And you'd even put something as silly down as less trip hazards, as there are less wires. Okie dokie, that will be enough for you to get your 4 marks. Remember to make these into full sentences. I'm just giving you bullet points. I imagine you probably don't want to watch me write full sentences. However, if you do, let me know in the comments and we can go through a proper analysis of these sorts of questions. Now then, 2 drawbacks of changing their home LAN to include wireless connections. So they are less stable connections. You will get a better internet connection, more stable internet connection off of Ethernet, which is a wire, so less stable connection. Okay. And then there's also prone to interference. So if you have a wall in between, then you're likely to have worse internet. So prone to interference. And this is because Wi-Fi specifically works over radio frequency. So if you have a wall in between, well, then you're not really going to get much over to your tablet, let's say. So anything in between is going to slow down the internet connection, whereas if you would have a wire, like an Ethernet cable, then your internet is going to be as fast as it can be. We're going to start on question 3. So, binary numbers can be represented can represent different forms of data. One form of data is characters. Complete the description of how computers represent characters in binary using the given list of terms. Not all terms will be used. So, a character set stores blank of all the characters a computer can represent. Each character is given a blank binary code. Lowercase and uppercase characters in a character set are given blank binary codes. One example of a character set is ASCII, which is the American Standard for Information Interchange. Yes, American Standard Code for Information Interchange. This character set uses something bits for each character. If the code value for the character F is 70, then the code value for the character L is what? Okay, so a character set stores all of the characters that a computer can represent. Each character is given a different binary code. Lowercase and uppercase letters in a character set are given unique binary codes. So the reason that all of the codes are unique is because if you had two repeated codes, then if you were trying to type, let's say, Z, you might end up with an A if they've got the same code, which would be very confusing. One character set example is ASCII, and ASCII uses 8 bits for each character, so 1 byte. That one you're just going to have to remember. And then here, the code value for the character F is 70, and the code value for the character L is what? So what we can do is we can write out the alphabet. I'm sure most of you know this. Okay, so if F is 70, then this will be 71, 72, 73, 76. So 76. And that will give us our answer. So, binary numbers can also represent images. The table shows the colors that are used in an image and the binary value for each color. Metadata states the image is 3 pixels wide by 4 pixels high. Data in the file starts in the top left of the image and goes from left to right, top to bottom. So, this is different from in maths. It's going to look like this instead. So, left to right, top to bottom. So, what is meant by metadata in an image? Metadata is data about the image. So, if you were to go onto iPhone, it would probably say taken on iPhone 12, or you might import something from a camera and it might say taken on a Canon EOS 1300 or something like that. So, it's just data about the image, how it was taken, what's in it. So, just write down data about the image. Okay, that will give you your 1 mark. So here, what we're going to have to do is split all of these into groups of 4 so that we can then compare with the key that we were given earlier. So it's going to take a bit of time, but it's lovely, easy marks. If you don't have much time left in an exam and you think you might be able to do some other questions instead, I'd recommend doing that, as this is going to take you a little bit to complete. So red is all 0, so let's just pop underneath here, red, red. Any more that are all zeros? Red. No, that's it. Green is 0, 0, 1, 0, so let's go for that. 0, 0, 1, 0. 1 green, 2 greens, not many greens. Blue is 1, 0, 0, 0, or just looks like 1,000. Don't say that in your exam though. And then that means that the rest of them are going to be purple. So pop all of those down as purple. Now, write the name of the colour in each square and the pixel that will show for this image. So remember that it is left to right and then top to bottom. So first it's going to be red. I'll just do R for this, and then it's going to be purple. Make sure to write out the full. This is just a shorter demonstration. There's no point you watching me write out all of this. Blue, green, blue, purple, 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 and then finally RGB. Red, green, and blue. Okay, there we go. So a color depth of 4 is used. This means 4 bits are used to store the color for each pixel. State the maximum number of different colors that can be represented in 4 bits. So a pixel can either represent on or off, 1 or 0. You've got 2 options. And because the color depth is 4, 2 to the power of 4, which gives us 16 different colors that can be represented in 4 bits. So the color depth is increased to 2 bytes. State 2 effects that this change will have on the image. So first of all, the quality of the image is going to improve. Got more colors, the quality will improve. Make our image look more colorful. That is an answer. You can put that it'll make the image more colorful, but let's pop something else in. If we've got more color depth, that means we've also got more data. So therefore the file size will also increase. Okay, let's move on to the next one. C. A student has a text document and an image file that need to be compressed separately. Student needs to reduce the file size of both these files as much as possible. Identify the most suitable type of compression for the text document. So there are 2 kinds of compression. There's lossy and lossless. The first one that we're going to have to use here is lossless compression. And the reason we need to use this is because we cannot lose any data from the text file, otherwise it will be useless. So lost text makes the data useless. The reason that we're using lossless is because it will not remove any of the data and allows the file to be put back to its original. Be fully reconstructed. Perfect. And the next one for image files, so image and audio, these things you're not going to notice necessarily. So we're going to use lossy compression. So it reduces more, reduces the file size significantly, and you might not even notice the decreased quality. Okay, perfect. Let's move on to question 4. So, tick 1 or more boxes on each row to identify all the methods that can help prevent a threat. So, spyware would be anti-malware, penetration, testing, encryption, and firewall. So, spyware as a malware type would be caught by anti-malware software. A brute force attack, this is going to be stopped by firewalls. So brute force is when loads and loads of different IP addresses from an attacker try and get to your network. So by setting up a firewall, that can block certain IP addresses, and that will make sure that these hackers cannot get into your data. Data interception. So encryption is very handy here. This is data interception. You might have heard of this called the man in the middle attack. It's a classic example. Um, Again, if your data is encrypted, then this is not going to be an issue, um, because once they do pick up this stuff, they won't be able to do anything with it. It will just be gibberish. And finally, a SQL injection. Well, through that, you would just use penetration testing to make sure that your software is up to scratch. Right. Name and describe one threat to a computer system that is not given. So a threat here that isn't given would be something like phishing. So let's pop that one down. Phishing with a PH, not an F. So phishing attacks. Um, and phishing attacks are where fake emails are sent to people, fake phone calls. So fake. It's mostly emails. A good way to look out for these is a spelling. And then the people will click on the links in these emails, and that will steal their data. People will. The data is usually stolen after a form's filled out, so you might think this is coming from Amazon or something. Um, so yeah, be very careful, especially if you do not recognize where the email is coming from. Okay, okay. Right. That was question 4. Um, so you get 1 mark here for the name and then 2 marks for the description. So another one would be social engineering, which is using deception to manipulate users to get personal data. You've got farming, DDoS attacks, people hacking. Um, so yeah, ransomware even. As long as there's a reference to you having to make payment with that. But yeah, plenty of different ones out there. Phishing is just quite an easy one to remember. Okay, let's go to question 5. An artist has a computer they use to create images. Their computer has both hardware and software. The hardware includes primary and secondary storage. So why does a computer need both primary and secondary storage? So primary storage is going to store the data and instructions, so the software, the operating system, mostly ROM, so read-only memory, and RAM, random access memory. It's also got cache, so frequently fetched instructions. And secondary storage is more long-term storage, so that's going to be your hard drives, your I suppose SD cards could count as secondary storage. Um, yeah, that sort of thing. So we'll go for why it needs it to store the data and instructions. So let's just say operating system here. And just so you know, without primary storage, the computer won't boot. And secondary storage, we're going to use this to store data that's not currently used, and it's also going to store stuff once the power has been turned off. So secondary storage. Stores data after the power has been turned off. Okay. One example of secondary storage device that the artist's computer will have, and an example of the data that will be stored on it. So they might have something like a hard drive or an SSD. and it's probably going to have the images or the software that the artist is creating, I suppose, their art. So let's go for an SSD, a solid state drive. If you don't know what that is, we've got some videos on different storage types, or you can just type it in the comments. And let's go for the images that the artist has created. Remember to relate this back to the question, guys. It shows the examiners that you know what you're doing and that you're paying attention to the questions. There you go. Okay, right. The computer has virtual memory, VM. The table has 4 statements about VM. Not all of the statements are correct. Take the true column for statements that are correct and rewrite any statement that is incorrect in the false column by changing the statement to mark it true. A section of primary storage is partitioned to act as virtual memory. So this is not true. Virtual memory comes into play when there's not enough primary storage. So the secondary storage acts as virtual memory. So let's write down a section of secondary storage. And virtual memory is sort of like when you run out of RAM, then you can use your SSD or any sort of secondary storage as temporary RAM. It's not very good for the computer, so make sure you've got enough RAM, but it can work. It causes something called disk thrashing, which is not great. Okay. Data from ROM is transferred into virtual memory. No, this is not true. Read-only memory only really stores the operating system, and as I mentioned earlier, this is going to be more random access memory. So, data from RAM, in fact, random access memory is transferred into virtual memory. Okay. Virtual memory is needed when RAM is full or nearly full. This is true. No rewriting needed here. And finally, data from virtual memory is transferred back to secondary storage when needed. So data from virtual memory is in fact transferred back to the RAM when needed as its virtual memory. Yes, once the RAM's done its job and it doesn't need the virtual memory anymore, it will just dump the data that's on it, and that virtual memory will go back to the secondary storage. But the data on the virtual memory will not go back to secondary storage; it will instead be dumped or used by the RAM. So we're going to write down that data from the virtual memory is transferred back to the RAM. Perfect. Right. B. The computer has an operating system and utility software. State the need for utility software in a computer. So this sort of just keeps the computer nice and tidy. So disk dethrashing software. There's plenty of other examples. Let me find some. Yes, antivirus, file management, compression utilities, disk management, all sorts of stuff like that. It helps to manage a computer system. So if you just write that it helps to maintain a computer system. Yep. The artist uploads images to be stored on a website. This is a client-server relationship. Identify the computer as acting as a client and justify your choice. So if they are displaying these on a website, then the client is going to be the artist's computer. As the artist's computer, let's do a little diagram here. Here's the server, and then the artist's computer as such. This is a terrible drawing, but you get the point. And they will send it to the server, which is the web. And this could be the PC. So the client computer is going to be the artist computer. And the reason for this is because it sends the files and data like to the web server. And it doesn't store the data for others to access the artist computer. So it sends data to the server. And it performs the user's actions, so and then sends the results to the server. There you go. So you need 2 for justification. We've got one here, and also the answer here. That gives us our 3 marks. So identify the computer that is acting as the server. Well, considering we've got the artist computer and the website, we're going to go for the web server as the answer to this one. And the web server is where all of the data is stored. So, and it's hosted on here also, so that other people can see the artist's work. So the web server receives requests and then it responds to them, and it handles the processing of all of this stuff. So let's say the web server handles the request, and that makes it a server, as your computer wouldn't handle these requests. Okay. D. The artist is working with a programmer on the development of a new piece of software. The software will allow users to edit images on devices such as mobile telephones. Considering releasing software as open source instead of proprietary, there are 2 benefits to the artist and the programmer of releasing software as proprietary software. So the first one is that they can make money. I mean, that's the authors will make money. If you give away software for free, you're not going to earn anything. Oh, what is it? By selling it for a fee, they can use licenses to, I suppose, stop unauthorized use. And it gives them more control over the intellectual property rights as well. So authors make money by selling software licenses. This is classic for companies like Adobe who make Photoshop. They will sell licenses to use their software. It's proprietary software, you have to pay for it. And more control over intellectual property. So can restrict users and restrict what can be done with the software without permission. So okay. Okay. Describe one benefit to the users of releasing the software as open source. So the users, if it's open source, they're going to be able to view the code, they can edit it, they can fix it if there are any errors that they find. It becomes free, so they don't have to pay for it. Let's go for they can view and edit the source code. They can edit the code, and therefore they can adapt the code to their needs. And fix errors, why not? Don't really need the final point, but just guarantees that you're getting all of your marks. Okay. 6. Now here's the essay question. Okay, we're going to pop right into question 6, and this one's going to be the essay question. So just bear in mind you are going to have to write an essay. I'm not going to write out the whole thing. I've just written a few bullet points here, as you can see. So let's go through it. A shopping centre has a security system that includes CCTV cameras to record activities in the centre. The security system is being upgraded to use facial recognition to identify and track the movements of and record individuals through the shopping centre. So discuss the ethical, privacy and legal issues with this. So we're going to go for the ethical issues first. On the positive, shoppers are going to feel safer, and if you're innocent, there's nothing to hide. Another argument that a lot of people come up with. However, users may feel unsafe as they are being watched constantly. And also the Data Protection Act. Where is this data going? Is it going to a third party? How long is that data being held for? All these things need to be accounted for in order for this to be lawful. And speaking of lawful, let's move on to see the legal issues. So the Data Protection Act must be followed to avoid fines. That includes stuff such as deleting your data after a certain amount of time, and even the fact that you can request your data. It doesn't fall under the Data Protection Act, but for any company, you should be allowed to request your data and they will have to send that back to you. Ultimately, the shopping centre is private property, so it is up to the management of the centre. It's their discretion as to what they want to do with it. And a positive of all of this is that it's going to reduce crime, and that may potentially lower prices for customers. Some shops increase their prices when there's high levels of crime, just so they don't make such a loss. Now, let's move on to the privacy issue. So people are going to feel that it's a bit of an invasion of privacy, especially with the facial recognition. You must link back to that. Taking scans of your face and recording you for the duration of your time at these shopping centres. Users are in a public place and can legally be recorded by anybody anyway, so it's a public space. If somebody tells you to stop filming stuff on the street, they technically can't. It's well within your rights, so it's a public space, they might be recorded anyway. Okay. Users might feel like they're being watched all the time. We put that one up here already, but that is also a privacy issue. And not all users have given the permission to the shopping centre to track them. So they might have a legal dispute here. The only issue would be that it is, again, private property, so they're not very likely to win out any sort of case. But they might not have given permission. Or the signage may not be clear enough, and that would be a separate legal issue. Exactly. So users not knowing that the system even exists, that falls under a completely different legal issue, as that way they don't know that they're being recorded, and therefore they're being recorded without their consent, which is going to cause some issues for the shopping centre. So it's very good to have a lot of wide range of information. Case studies are especially useful with this. If you look at the news and you can come up with anything and link it back, just to show the examiners that you really know what you're on about. That way you can increase your marks, you can link it back. Make sure to focus on just the stuff that you've been taught at GCSE. Do not go into any more detail. You will unfortunately not be awarded the marks. So make sure there's like a well-developed line of reasoning and you've got a logical structure and that they all link together. Stuff like peel paragraphs, point, evidence, explanation, link. That's going to serve you well. Just try and use the stuff that you've been taught in English and you should get on just fine. They give you plenty of space. It's worth 8 marks, and make sure that you're using full sentences. You're not marked down for bad spelling, as long as the examiners can understand what you're trying to say. That's the only requirement. And our final question now is question 7. A car comes with many embedded systems, for example, parking sensors. Identify one other embedded system that could be found in a car and explain why this is an embedded system. So, I imagine that many of you will not have driven, considering you'll all be around the age of 16 or below, so not legal. But you'll know things such as a sat nav or a GPS, the radio. Some of you might have auto parking on your parents' cars or dash cams to record stuff. Any of these can be considered embedded systems. We'll go for the stuff that's on the car that I drive. So auto lights, when it gets dark, then the lights turn on. That's very standard for, I'd probably say about 90% of cars do that. So automatic lights. And these will turn on when it's dark outside. So lights will check, there'll be a sensor to see how dark it is outside. So dedicated sensor to detect light levels. And then once the light levels hit a certain point, like once they're low enough, then the microprocessor will turn on the lights. Okay, perfect. And there's loads of different stuff. There's cruise control, automatic parking, even if you've got a very fancy car. Um, you don't have to know exactly how these things work. You can make an educated guess. I don't know exactly how automatic lights work. I'm assuming that they work using a light sensor. That's what makes sense to me. And as long as you can explain that to the examiner, that's all that really matters. That's in the mark scheme. So don't worry too much if you don't know anything about how your specific electronics in your car work. Just know that yeah, the examiners aren't looking to catch you out with this one. You've got to remember that it's got limited functionality. That's what makes it an embedded system. So uh, we need to explain why this is an embedded system. So it's got limited functionality. You can only do one thing. Otherwise, it would be a more general system and then just a computer. And yeah, that leads us to the end of the question paper. Um, Thank you so much for following along. If there's any questions, then feel free to leave them in the comments, and me or one of the other tutors, most likely me, will go through and read your comments and respond. Hopefully be able to help you guys out before your upcoming GCSE papers. And let us know if you like the format of these, if you want any more, if there's a different paper that you want us to do, or any other lessons surrounding stuff that's confusing you. We love hearing the feedback. So yeah, best of luck with your GCSE revision and hope to see you guys again next time.